Next up, we have Farfetch'd, otherwise known as Chiding, which is the nickname of the Farfetch'd that you get from one of the trades in the original games. This classic first-generation Pokemon had a great Indigo League episode and is well known for teaching the world Farfetch'd to children worldwide. Also, the Farfetch'd transition in Pikachu's Vacation was arguably the best one. Today, we find out if Farfetch'd was a strong competitive choice or if the very idea was far beyond anyone's consideration. And so, we ask, how good were Farfetch'd and Sirfetch'd actually? And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats. Fortunate it was not, for Generation 1 foisted flawed features on Farfetch'd. As such, it was far from first class or even functional. Access to Stab Slash, which automatically crit in Gen 1, was favorable, as were Swords Dance, Agility, and Body Slam, but Farfetch'd was failed by its faulty stats. As such, it floundered feebly, with any attempts to use it in even NU proving futile. It was offensively feeble with flimsy attack and flat-footed speed, while also being defensively frail. It was phenomenally facile to make faint for any foe. Farfetch'd's grade in its inaugural generation was a big fat F. Fortunately, Farfetch'd found use in the second generation of NU. On its own, it wasn't a threat. However, it was given one of the most tremendous moves in the game, Baton Pass, allowing it to hand boost off to its teammates. Passing Cubone and Agility threatened to instantly end the game, while passing Swords Dance to Stantler was similarly dangerous. Other top-tier physical attackers like Primeape and Kingler were similarly enhanced when paired with Farfetch'd. It was rare that Farfetch'd managed to pass both boosts thanks to its low bulk and weakness to common attacks like Thunderbolt, but it was possible. For example, with screen supports from Bayleaf. And if it did pull that off, it was lights out. With Swords Dance and its new normal stab move return, Farfetch'd could punish Haze attempts from Xatu and Weezing. As a result, it was reliable at getting passes off on a game-to-game basis. It wouldn't even be unusual for it to pass multiple items in a game thanks to its immunity to spikes, allowing it to make the most of Leftover's recovery. All in all, Farfetch'd was a Pokemon you didn't want getting free turns. Its support capabilities were game winners. Farfetch'd was one of the most fearsome Pokemon in the metagame. Yeah, I bet that's a sentence you didn't think you'd hear coming into this video, but it's true. Farfetch'd was a threat and a half, and any GSC NU player respected the threat that it posed. Sadly, Gen 2 Farfetch'd was a bit of a one-hit wonder. It wasn't able to replicate its success in Gen 3 NU, as its baton passing antics were thoroughly outdone by the vastly superior Mawile. Without Baton Pass, Farfetch'd was once again relegated to utter uselessness. Sure, it had knockoff, but as great as that move was, it didn't justify the complete lack of utility that came with using Farfetch'd. Technically, it could try and generate some offense with its signature item, Stick, which sharply raised its critical hit ratio and was especially effective alongside the boosted crit chance of Slash, and a Swords Dance boosted critical hit Slash was quite dangerous. Unfortunately, that was all Farfetch'd had going for it. Even a +2 crit Slash wasn't strong enough to bypass normal resist, and Farfetch'd's atrocious attack ascertained any alternate assault, meaning hidden power would be appallingly insufficient. Furthermore, Farfetch'd's lack of speed or any sort of bulk rendered it vulnerable to nearly anything with an attacking move, and thus incapable of getting even one KO, let alone sweeping teams. Farfetch'd's Stick may have been fabulous enough to make Sharpay Evans jealous, but competitively, just about everything else was bigger and better and best. The 4th generation gave Farfetch'd U-Turn, Roost, and Leaf Blade, then completely forgot about it until it was time to give it a new sprite in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, then abandoned it once again. Far be it from us to suggest those moves weren't excellent, nor that the Heart Gold and Soul Silver sprites weren't ravishing, but for Farfetch'd, this was akin to handing a bottle of fresh, delicious water to someone whose house was in the process of burning down. To add insult to injury, Farfetch'd didn't receive Brave Bird. Not that it would have made it any less unusable, but at least it would have felt a little less invisible to Game Freak, who were too busy dotting over every other bird in existence. Talk about foul play, which, spoiler alert, is another move Farfetch'd will not be receiving in the future. Gen 5 was ever so gracious in giving Farfetch'd Brave Bird, as well as a new ability in Defiant, which would viciously turn the tables on any attempt to intimidate it. Sadly, one did not exactly need to intimidate Farfetch'd in order to take pittance from its moves. Its attack stat was so low, it was like it had already been hit with 6 Intimidates. Not that you'd ever even find out, since it was so slow and frail that it crumpled to any attack before it ever got a chance to attack. Farfetch'd was the ruler of the kingdom of far, far away from ever being viable, or as it was referred to in the tiering world, untiered. Generation 6 introduced PU, the new lowest tier, but it was still far beyond the grasp of Farfetch'd's stick-gripping wings. It wasn't just outclassed by fellow normal flying type Dodrio, it was also outclassed as a physical attacker by Jump Pluff of all things. Jump Pluff, which has 10 less base attack than the already pitiful Farfetch'd and no stab moves as strong as Brave Bird. However, Jump Pluff also had Sleep Powder and an incredible speed stat, so it could easily accomplish more than Farfetch'd in just about every battle. This was a new low for Farfetch'd, but it wasn't a surprising one. If anyone ever gave it a thought, untiered is just about where they would expect it to end up, and that's exactly what happened. At long last, Generation 7 gave Farfetch'd a much needed stat boost. Finally, its attack rose from a paltry 65 to a respectable 90. It also received a powerful new move in first impression. However, PU was still beyond its reach, as not only did its other stats remain pitiful, but Dodrio was also still in the tier. This would have been bad enough if it had been the same old Dodrio, but no, Dodrio also got buffed ridiculously hard, gaining a massive boost to its base speed in addition to obtaining Swords Dance and the powerful, important coverage of Jump Kick. This favoritism was so blatantly cruel that the already excellent Dodrio was made even better, while despite finally getting some boosts on its own, they weren't nearly enough even for Farfetch'd to receive even the smallest semblance of a niche in PU. Even after all these years, it still stood nary a chance at ever seeing usage. Press F in the chat or in the comment section. You might have already guessed that Farfetch'd wasn't exactly the cream of the crop in VGC either. But in honor of the whimsical nature of Farfetch'd's very existence, there are some brave souls who gave it a shot at glory. After all, Farfetch'd itself is based on a Japanese phrase referring to a surprisingly serendipitous event. And Farfetch'd having a few VGC results is nothing if surprising and fortunate for us, because it means we actually have enough material to get this video over 10 minutes. Hashtag no sellout. Chief among those who brought Farfetch'd into battle is none other than Wolfie Glick, who succeeded in his mission of giving Farfetch'd championship points by going 5-2 at the Atlantic City Regionals in 2019. Just the picture of this team is likely to make you feel a bit insane. Groudon, Xerneas, Incineroar, Salamence, and then Farfetch'd. According to Wolf, Farfetch'd went 3-1 in the 4 games he got to come to. And let's not forget that Farfetch'd does actually have one of the best VGC abilities, Defiant. It also has access to one of the best moves, Tailwind. Now, does that mean it's good? No, definitely not. But in the immortal words of Aaron Trailer, mess with the glick, you get the stick. Except Wolf didn't even give Farfetch'd a leak or a stick. He gave it a focus sash to ensure that it could at least fire off a Tailwind. And what's more, he wasn't even the first person to get Farfetch'd championship points. You scammer, Wolf. That honor goes to Danny Hernandez, who managed to get Farfetch'd on the board a full week before Wolf's regional run at the Madrid Premier Challenge. Wait, did I say get on the board? Excuse me. Danny won the entire dang tournament with a Farfetch'd. Now, if that's not, what's another word for unlikely? Never mind, it'll come to me later. Anyways, Danny was inspired by the recent reveal of Sirfetch'd, which had set the internet aflutter just a few days before the Madrid Premier Challenge. Danny thought that his team of Kyogre, Lunala, Mega Metagross, Whimsicott, and Chansey was pretty complete without a 5th Mon, so he threw in a Farfetch'd as a laugh. And I have to assume for the intimidation factor. True to Farfetch'd's theme and evolution method, Danny knitted out Farfetch'd with a leak and crit moves, packing a move set of Night Slash, Leaf Blade, Brave Bird, and then the one move he would actually click. Yup, Tailwind. Listen, no one is making the claim that Farfetch'd was MVP, but a benchwarmer still gets a championship ring. So just goes to show, maybe if Wolf had leaned into the essence of Farfetch'd more, he would have won the tournament. Special thanks to Wolf Glick and Danny Hernandez for the info. At long last, the 8th generation finally gave Farfetch'd the kind of significant changes it needed to be more than just a pleasant passing memory from in-game playthroughs. Its regular form remained a completely unviable untiered Pokemon to nobody's surprise, but now it had new forms. Galarian Farfetch'd became a pure fighting type, receiving close combat and gained 5 base attack, which was great. Of course, it also lost 5 base speed, which was a necessary balancing move because it certainly would have terrorized the competitive scene if it had both base 95 attack and base 60 speed. Like, really, Game Freak? Sure, it was probably justified as a game design choice or whatever, but honestly, come on. Anyway, Galarian Farfetch'd was still unable to break into even PU, but seeing as it wasn't a fully evolved Pokemon, it was at least spared being referred to as untiered. Not fully evolved? Yes, that's right. Galarian Farfetch'd evolved into Sirfetch'd. However, before we get into that, we're going to have a first tier on False Sweat Gaming. Since Galarian Farfetch'd is a bit of a special case, we're going to cover Little Cup. In the early home metagame, which was dominated by Cutiefly, Sticky Web was the most powerful, prominent playstyle, and given its power, Galarian Farfetch'd was a powerful abuser of an opponent's lowered speed, using a substitute Swords Dance set with Berry Juice. Setting up wasn't difficult, and it trucked through many teams, especially as it could beat the most common variants of some of the few Pokemon unaffected by Sticky Web, Drifloon, and Vullaby. After Cutiefly was banned, Sticky Web was nerfed, and Galarian Farfetch'd usage decreased dramatically. When Sticky Web was still used, Galarian Farfetch'd remained a force, but it was no longer anywhere near an automatic addition. It had powerful competition in Grookey and Scraggy. It also saw some usage with the Choice Scarf set, which made use of its access to Final Gambit to catch an opponent by surprise and take out a key opposing Pokemon. It had enough HP several checks to other fighting teams if there was Stealth Rock up, notably Mariani and Vullaby, thus opening a huge hole for its teammates. Sadly, this came to an end with the Isle of Armor. Once Mienfoo returned, Galarian Farfetch'd usage completely disappeared. There was no reason to use it when it was so completely and utterly outclassed by one of the best Pokemon in the metagame. Mienfoo hit a crucial speed stat of 17, which was one above Galarian Farfetch'd and did everything Galarian Farfetch'd would want to do, but far better. Well, except for the Final Gambit Scarf set, but that set was nowhere near good enough to justify to use it over the thoroughly superior Mienfoo. However, that was alright, because Galarian Farfetch'd had its time. And now we can move on to Sirfetch'd. Now this was a threatening Pokemon. Its incredible attack stat meant its stab close combat hit harder than that of Urshifu and Terrakion. It also gained decent boosts to all its other stats, which included a highly respectable base 95 defense. Now nobody would consider it tanky, nor would base 65 speed be seen as fast, but it was no longer frail and every bit of speed was helpful. For the first time ever, it saw usage in OU. It was incredibly brief, but at the very beginning of the tier, some players enjoyed Choice Band Sirfetch'd since it could spam close combat unperturbed by all the ghosts in the tier thanks to Scrappy. Conkeldurr was far better overall, but the fact remains that Sirfetch'd cackled as it destroyed Dragapults that didn't realize what they were in for. Plus, its higher speed allowed it to destroy Corviknight that would outspeed even fast Conkeldurr. Of course, Sirfetch'd was correctly deemed a lower tier Pokemon from day one, but it was still very cool that it had been seen in OU at all. However briefly it may have been. Afterwards, it dropped to UU right as the tier began in this early stage, and it was one of the most dangerous Pokemon around. It was the tier's most common fighting type, renowned for its dangerous choice band close combats that were incredibly spammable and went more or less uncontested as a result of Scrappy, allowing it to bypass Ghosts. It too had KO'd nearly the entire tier. Eventually, however, players began gravitating to Pangoro, whose close combats weren't as powerful, but were accentuated by secondary stab in the vicious knockoff. Sirfetch'd's higher speed was an advantage, but it still couldn't match the sheer utility of stab knockoff, and thus it eventually fell out of use. Still though, to be renowned as one of the most unstoppable UU threats is nothing to sneeze at. Of course, as it dropped out of UU, that meant it dropped into RU, but that didn't last. It was quick banned off the strength of its incredibly spammable close combat that effortlessly cleaved through nearly the whole tier. One of the few Pokemon that could withstand close combat, Vileplume, got absolutely destroyed by Brave Bird, so it wasn't at all a safe switch-in, leaving Sirfetch'd to happily close combat just about everything else. Its powerful first impression gave it excellent priority against faster Pokemon as well, and with Knockoff and Swords Dance, it completely invalidated defensive teams. As it was too powerful for RU, yet was not quite good enough for reliable use in UU, Sirfetch'd existed in limbo for a while, and then the Crown Tundra came. It somersaulted down the tiering rung into PU, but once again, it was quick banned for the same reasons as in RU. Choice banded close combats and first impressions, the former aided by Scrappy, were absolutely lethal. The trickle-down effect of power creep meant it wouldn't be returning to RU, as Pangoro and Beware now resided there. However, this was good news for Sirfetch'd in its new home of NU, as it could now prey on Vileplume once again, while, as always, spamming close combat against everything else. It began experimenting with Leak as its item, which provided a 50% critical hit rate. Its average power was comparable to that of Life Orb, and the defense boost ignoring effect of critical hits allowed Sirfetch'd to break through a prominent physical wall, Mudsdale. First impression remains excellent as ever, giving Sirfetch'd genuine defensive utility. It's an important tool for checking fast, dangerous threats such as Shell Smash Blastoise. Of course, its selling point was the unrivaled wall-breaking ability of its colossal close combat. At the time of this video, Sirfetch'd is a solid Pokemon in Sword and Shield NU, capping off a highly eventful generation for the Farfetch'd family. And all those crits must have made Danny's Farfetch'd evolve, because Sirfetch'd, well, it didn't show up too much in VGC 2020, but it did have one notable result. Gary Nguyen brought Sirfetch'd to the Collinsville Regionals on an especially innovative team. Gary started the team with Arena Trap Pinch, building out from there to take advantage of hard Trick Room and weakness policy Rhyperior. Sirfetch'd's role in the team was to handle the bulky water types that could threaten Rhyperior and Trap Pinch. Enter Leak Boosted Leaf Blade, a guaranteed crit move that ignores stat boosts, such as Milotic Coils or even something like a stamina boosted Mudsdale. Gary said himself that his Sirfetch'd was the highlight of the team, with its additional steel wing coverage for Sylveon and massive close combat damage, allowing it to exert huge offense pressure in Trick Room. The 50% crit chance on close combat was a nice bonus for ignoring potential max steel spike boosts, making a crit base core along with Togekiss that was sure to upset opponents. Gary ran all the way to top 16 until he fell to Wolf Glick. Okay, Wolf, guess your duck knowledge paid off after all. And that's it. So how good was Farfetch'd and Sirfetch'd actually? Well, historically, Farfetch'd has been among the worst Pokemon ever. Apart from its excellent niche in GSC NU and the stuff it did in Gen 8, Farfetch'd has been completely unusable thanks to its utterly pathetic stats over the years. At least Sword and Shield helped it out in this regard, because not only did Galarian Farfetch'd see some Little Cup success, the much needed evolution, Sirfetch'd, allowed the Farfetch'd clan its first glimpse into OU. A brief glimpse, but a glimpse nonetheless. It then proceeded to briefly destroy UU and RU, getting quick ban from the latter. Then with the tiering shifts, it dropped to PU before getting quick ban from there and settling into a solid niche in NU. It's been nice to see Sirfetch'd having such a successful generation after Farfetch'd had been kept down in the dirt for so long. Hopefully Game Freak continues to provide evolutions and regional forms to breathe life into more forgotten Pokemon. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content, and in the comments I want to know, what do you think about competitive Farfetch'd or Sirfetch'd? How would you buff it? Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.